Good evening, dear friends, and welcome to today's Fireside chat. We have with us for this chat India's top inspirational leaders, Mr. Kamal Bali, President and Managing Director of Volvo Group India, and Radhika Nair, Head of People and Culture. Before we start, we would like to share with you a video on Volvo India that captures all that we have been doing over the last 25 years, as also what's in store for the next 25. Let's have the video, please.
When Volvo came to India, many commented that it was going to be a Herculean and an impossible task. But some of us had other ideas. Ideas that set us on an incredible journey that we are still on today after 25 years. It's a journey that would transform the way we look at transportation, logistics and infrastructure in India, and also change the way India looks at us. We are Volvo Group in India, and for the last 25 years, we have been creating value by driving change. Many things have changed over the years. It was initially perceived that our large and heavy-duty vehicles were not suited for Indian roads. But today, you will find us in the farthest, most remote parts of the country, going to unprecedented depths. It was said Indian drivers were not acquainted with such trucks. Our response was a driver training center even before we sold our first truck. The purpose was to make good drivers even better, to give better productivity. It was said we need to have a service station every 40 kilometers. We responded with vehicles that can go on and on and on. We believe the partnership is the new leadership. We have partnered with our customers to optimize their operations to make their business more profitable.
Volvo has been an integral part of our journey. Up till now, we've purchased more than 500 trucks, and currently we're having 300 trucks which are running in our fleet.
Being an unknown brand to most preferred brand in India, and my company selling from couple of machines to 200 machines in a year, we have come a long way.
We help entrepreneurs scale up their ventures to create new transport and infrastructure solutions. And we help to educate and upskill the growing Indian talent pool for the industry. And through partnerships, drive innovation and foresight. In a country where owning a car is an aspiration, we catalyze the public transport agenda through a shift towards buses. Now, we don't just drive on the roads that people once said we couldn't handle. We also provide equipment and solutions to build modern roads. Today, our state-of-the-art solutions play an important role in keeping our country safe, progressive and resilient. At At our global competency centers, we are developing and working with technologies to support the transformation journey that the Volvo Group has embarked upon. Of the many changes we have driven, this has been the most heart-rending one. The change we have brought in the lives of people.
ವಾಲ್ವೋ ಬಂದಾಗ ನನಗೂ ಆಸೆ ಇತ್ತು. ಒಂದು ಕಂಪನಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಪರ್ಚೇಸರ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಆ ಕಂಪನಿಯಿಂದ ನಾನೊಬ್ಬ ಡ್ರೈವರ್ ಇದ್ದೆ. ಆ ಡ್ರೈವರ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮದೆಲ್ಲ ಸ್ಟೇಟಸ್ ನೋಡಿದರು, ಬೆಸ್ಟ್ ಅನ್ನಿಸ್ತು. ವಾಲ್ವೋ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗಿಗೆ ಕಳಿಸಿದ್ರು. 8 ದಿವಸಗಳ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗ್ ತೊಗೊಂಡು ಆ ಟ್ರೈನಿಂಗಲ್ಲಿ ಪಾಸ್ ಆದಾಗ ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಜನಾಂಗ ನೋಡೋದೇ ಸ್ಟೈಲೇ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಯಿತು. ಅವತ್ತಿಂದ ನಮ್ಮ ಲೈಫ್ ಸ್ಟೈಲೇ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಯಿತು.
We imagined a better life for everybody. A better life not just for people who associate with us, but for all.
We started with Volvo 25 years back. Today, after 25 years, we are touching the 40 million euro sale mark of the Volvo. We have completely eliminated use of virgin materials like pigine in our charge mix. And also, we have replaced all diesel heating systems with electric heating, thereby converting it to a green process.
Our mission is our guiding star, our compass north. Create value, drive change. That is exactly what we have done. It's hard to believe that we were once just 6 colleagues sitting in a hotel room. Together with our joint venture with Aisha, we are now a 20,000 strong team. Volvo Group Digital and IT has grown from an internal function to becoming the second largest Volvo Group site in the world. What began as a local product development initiative in India is now the second largest Volvo R&D center in the world. 25 years ago, Volvo came to India, and now Volvo India supplies the world. We maintain a global profile in India, for we are at home in India and we export.
Our mission is to drive prosperity through transport and infrastructure solutions, and I sincerely believe that it is in India where this mission can come to life in the real way. While we do this, it is equally important that the principles of holistic sustainability, to which we are deeply committed, remain our top priority.
At the cusp of an unprecedented transformation, India is ushering in structural reforms and investing large capex for infrastructure development while supporting the vulnerable and weaker sections. The road ahead is set towards a cleaner, greener and inclusive future. Together, we have seen 25 years of continued breakthroughs on our journey. But India's growth story has only just begun. Just like in the past, our stories are intertwined. As India grows, so do we. As we grow, so will India. India's flourishing startup and digital competency will play a key role in meeting Volvo Group's global ambition of achieving 50% revenue through services.
With the emerging technologies, new opportunities, and the unique India advantage that we have, I am sure we will continue to reimagine the new possibilities, augment our partnerships with our existing partners and the stakeholders, so that we can together shape a future in which we all want to live.
We will strive to take India into a future with world-class logistics efficiencies, and our focus, as always, is on people. India aims to reduce road fatalities by 50%, and we're working on solutions that will help. Closer home, at our workspaces, we promote a healthy approach to work and life.
When I joined Volvo, what struck me the most was an environment and culture that is filled with genuine care and empathy for their people. For me, it's truly a great place to work.
We believe there is strength in diversity. We believe progress comes from equal access to opportunity. And we will together shape the world we want to live in together. At Volvo Group, in India, for the world.
welcome back again. Let me start with you first, Kamal. Thinking of young engineers who will join us today or in the next couple of years, what are the industry trends that they should be aware of, especially in the context of future of mobility, transportation, and infrastructure?
Yeah, thank you, Paul. But let me add my welcome to Paul's, to my young friends. Welcome to this chat. First of all, let me say that these are highly exciting and disruptive times, and probably the best times to be an engineer. I say this because most sectors and domains are going through once in a lifetime sort of a transformation. And this is that transformation that involves innovation, engineering, as well as new business model initiatives. New starting lines are being drawn and everybody starts afresh. That's the interesting part as well. But let me also share some big ticket changes and mega trends in the industry, especially the automotive and mobility sector that we need to be aware of. Things like a complete ecosystem-wide transformation which has been led by automation, connectivity, electromobility, and shared mobility, and the focus on alternative fuels. So these are the 5 key elements which are driving that change. In addition, this has been further accentuated and helped by new tech and AI. And most of the shifts which I talked about have been driven by very growing and compelling concerns on climate change and net zero ambitions. For instance, at Volvo Group, we have committed to become net zero by 2040 with ambitions at 2030 to reduce our emission intensity by about 40 to 50%. Friends, the size of transformation challenge is so large, complex, and costly that all tools in the box will have to be deployed. What I mean to say that there are many modes of new energy and there is no one silver bullet. And I'll come back to that a little later. But now all this means a lot, especially if you are a young engineer, that too in India, because there are so many opportunities which I've already talked about. Let me start with India Global Competency Centers for R&D, including at Volvo Group. India is playing a key role in global digital transformation. You need engineers for that. Increased levels of virtual simulation, augmented reality, digital twins, industrial metaverse, to manage multiple R&D streams. This is again where the Indian engineers will be at the helm. And I can tell you that transport and logistics efficiency improvement imperatives are a big one as well. For instance, the efficiency of a truck globally is just about 50%. We need to bring it up to a much, much higher level. So there again, a huge range of aggregation, optimization, and efficiency techniques will have to be used. Here again, we need young, bright engineers like the ones who are sitting here today. So I'll stop here, Paul, and maybe you can take it forward.
Thank you, Kamal. Let me turn to you, Radhika. Keeping in mind the nature of the world that we are living in and the transformative trends that Kamal spoke about, what are the imperatives for the future workforce and our talent that will support this changing future?
Sure. Thank you, Paul. And good evening, everybody. Like Kamal called out, we are living in extraordinary times. We say that because technology, sustainability, and purpose are converging to reshape the industries like ours. So the question is not just about how we adapt to these changes, but it's also about how we should lead it and thrive in this transformation, right? Now, it only gets complicated given with AI, co-pilots, and other tools that are there. Knowledge is becoming more and more commoditized. So true value comes from how we apply that knowledge, understanding the problem that we are solving. Future workforce, which is all of you, also need to be able to deliver even more, bearing in mind the 3 aspects that really is fundamental for any industry going forward, which is the cost, time, and the quality expectations in each role. Now, being data literate in a big data world is not optional anymore. It is a superpower. So no matter what role or industry you're part of, being data literate is the way to go. Also, like I called out, because knowledge itself is becoming more and more commoditized, the ability for you to connect the dots and think plurally becomes very critical. So we need more people who could look at the challenges with multiple lenses, whether it is the technical lens, the societal, or the economic one. For example, our sustainability goals that we have in Volvo Group, well, it has to have various perspectives coming together, whether it is the design, the engineering, the aspects from an environmentalist perspective, policymakers, everybody coming together, right? So understanding the deeper purpose of the work becomes super important. Also, all of this has to be in the bedrock of a workplace that is inspiring innovation, right? Now, inclusion and well-being are not just trends. They are foundation to fostering creativity and collaboration. So an environment where people feel safe to experiment, fail, and learn. So I would say most important aspect is to stay curious.
Thank you, Radhika.
Thank you.
Kamal, we have heard you say earlier that innovation and technology are keys for an organization's growth. How is Volvo ensuring this? And what role can an engineer play in this?
Yeah, I mean, Paul, absolutely, you're spot on. Indeed, embracing innovation and emerging technologies is no more a choice. I mean, I think it's a absolute imperative. For this, I think we need a few things to be done right. I think the first is the right culture in the organization. I'm sure Radhika will allude to that a little later. Basically, a culture that encourages new ideas, breaks down silos, it's more transparent, mutual respect. I think that's something very, very important where people feel safe. I think that's very important. Second, we need, very importantly, a higher purpose. Why is higher purpose important? I think the higher purpose lets everybody, it galvanizes teams to come together. And that's very, very important. For instance, we have a purpose to drive prosperity through transport and infrastructure solutions, and that drives the whole of Volvo Group. Next, it's very important to have owner's mentality. And I say this because in large organizations like Volvo, you don't have shareholders all over. You don't have owners all over. So I think it's the ownership of the products, the processes which each one of us does is very, very important, because you are responsible for the entire life cycle of that process or that product. Then, of course, very important is collaboration. Nothing, and in Volvo we talk very often that partnership is the new leadership. And I think unless you collaborate with the entire ecosystem, which could be your suppliers, the startups, the academia, and the government and the authorities, you cannot get this whole piece together, because we are looking at ecosystem transformation and not just one piece. And then I think the next one is very important equally, is a shift in the mindsets. We need to move into mindsets which are very different. You know, I mean, typically, if you asked me 20 years ago, what do? I would say I built trucks and I am responsible for the trucking sector. Today, I think that has changed dramatically. We need to look at the larger value chain, which is the logistics value chain. So from products to more services, going digital to maximize our potential and ability to be innovative. So I think this is something very, very good. And finally, we need to really recognize and celebrate success stories. And that's something very important. Every success story in the company has to be rewarded and appreciated and talked about. That is the kind of ecosystem, and that is the way when innovation will thrive inside the company. And that's what at Volvo we constantly attempt.
Thank you, Kamal, for very clearly putting that message out to the young engineers watching us on organization's key role in innovation and technology. Coming back to you, Radhika, a question where we say innovation versus ensuring solutions from Volvo to meet the test of quality, delivery, and customer expectations. require two different cultures. How do you ensure such a flexible mindset amongst the young teams and colleagues?
Sure. It's an interesting question, Paul, because what you're talking about is innovation and operational excellence. While innovation and operational excellence seems like two opposite ends of the spectrum, because one thrives on creativity, risk-taking, experimentation, while the other demands precision, discipline, and consistency. But really, the magic is when both coexist, right? And in Volvo, we've taken a two-pronged approach, meaning to say that we've structurally tried to manage this by moving away from the traditional career paths to a competence-based career path. We call it the engineering career path, where opportunities for engineers to work in specific area and get deep expertise, or they could move across to gather a breadth of skills. Now, engineers grow to build their competence, so enabling a culture of continuous learning. And we do that through Volvo Group University that takes care of most of the learning needs in-house. We also have the most modern labs and infrastructure. We also have the opportunities of short-term assignments, not just internally within India, but also, short-term assignments in other countries where we have our R&D setup. And also various other projects where our engineers really learn as they contribute in these various projects. So, like I said, structurally making sure that the job architecture is more competence based is one of the ways in which we've tried to solve that, because in a way people tend to build on their competence every time. So either it's about broadening their skill base or about looking at expertise. Now, while we do that, and why we've created that is also because in Volvo, we talk about a culture of perform and transform, where performing is now and here, which is like a prerequisite to take part in transformation in terms of new technologies and business models, because that also enables continuous learning. So we celebrate, in nutshell, both creativity and innovation and accountability, thus fostering a mindset or a flexible mindset, widening the thought process for both the mindsets to coexist. And that's how we flourish.
Thank you, Radhika, for sharing Volvo's solutions to get young minds and young teams and colleagues on a flexible mindset.
Sure.
Kamal, now to you, a question where I would like to ask you, sustainability and climate change are the other key imperatives and much talked about today. What do you think are key enablers here, and what role do you see engineers in your company playing in this context?
Right, absolutely, Paul. Climate change is one of the biggest challenges that the world faces, and I think a lot of what I have talked about, the shifts in the industry which you are saying, the real driver is the climate change. I think climate change is here for real now. It's no more something which is on PowerPoint presentations for tomorrow. It's going to happen right here in front of us. So at Volvo Group, we are very clear. We apply the principles of holistic sustainability, where we mean that we look at four elements: economic efficiencies, we look at care for environment, we want to be socially inclusive and morally ethical. So these are the four very clear principles which we follow when it comes to sustainability and climate change. And we have a goal to be net value chain zero by 2040, I already talked about. So, and our strategy is to take a three-pronged approach to this, because this whole challenge is so large. We have to use all tools in the box. For instance, we will go for hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles. That's one. Battery electric vehicles, which we are often talked about, and the IC engines with clean fuels. So very clearly, three different paths will be used for the future of mobility to be able to manage climate change, to become net zero when it comes to emissions. Clearly, four parameters must be in place. It's not just your and my vehicle, Volvo. I think we need the entire ecosystem here. Vehicle powertrain to be friendly. We talked about electricity charging and hydrogen refueling infrastructure, which is very important. Availability of green electricity and green hydrogen. There have to be manufacturers who have to do that. Oil companies are coming forward. A viable business case for transport operators, so which means that in case the initial cost is high, how do you still make the total cost of ownership viable? Therefore, government comes into play where they give incentives for initial purchase of these vehicles. So I think it's a big maze to really follow. Fortunately, this is being finally understood across board, and there are many interventions needed, and Niti Aayog is on board with this. As we often say at Volvo, partnership is a new leadership. I have said this before. So examples include that we are partnering with, for instance, our competitor Daimler, where we are creating, we have a joint venture called Cell-centric, which is working on hydrogen fuel cells together. We are working with Samsung on batteries. We are working with Aurora and NVIDIA on autonomous solutions. We are working with Traton and Daimler again for charging infrastructure. So I think if you asked me 5 years ago, these partnerships were not there. These are new partnerships which are really, we have all been pushed into doing this because we need to solve that big problem of climate change, and I think sustainability is going to come through that. Finally, to put all this together, to your other question, where is the role of engineers? I think it is these engineers today who will join us today will be the ones who would have made this whole possible. India is number 2 global R&D hub, and India will play a key role in shaping this future. So I'm very confident that young engineers will have lots on their plate because there's a huge, large agenda to be solved. So therefore, huge opportunities. Sustainability and climate change are actually opportunities for the young engineers to make a world which we all can be proud of.
Thank you, Kamal, for giving a nice, crisp answer to, as you said, the biggest challenge to our planet, people, and society on climate change and sustainability. Now, over to you, Radhika. I would like to ask you from the people's perspective. Sustainability from a people's perspective has various components, such as mental well-being, diversity and inclusion, work-life balance, space beyond one's own role. Mm-hmm. How do you ensure this environment in your organization?
Actually, that's an interesting question, Paul, because when we talk about sustainability, we often think of environmental goals like reducing emission or cleaner energy, etc. But if you really look at it, true sustainability starts with people. It is about creating workplaces where each employee, each individual thrives, not just professionally, but personally as well. And in Volvo, we've used a two-level approach to this. The first being developing engineers not just to excel in their craft, but also to contribute meaningfully to the triple bottom line, which is people, planet, and profit. How people? Through continuous learning. So there are a lot of avenues that we provide to, as I was talking before as well about, providing that avenues for engineers to continuously evolve in their learning. Planet, from energy efficient systems and circularity that gets developed, and profit from innovation and efficiency that our people build in, thus providing a strong and larger purpose for the work that they do. For any sustainability from a people standpoint to start, it is important that the purpose is really large enough for them to contribute. So that being taken care of. The second part is building an environment of resilience, innovation, and inclusivity. Now here is where the aspects that you had called out, which is mental well-being, inclusion, and all of that comes in play. Now prioritizing mental well-being today is a fundamental need, right? Proactive approaches, not just to normalize these conversations, but trainings to the managers, because the managers are the first point of contact and most often are the first people to recognize there is stress in the employee. So training the managers and employees to identify such signs, and also supporting through employee assistance programs, counselings, one-on-one and others. All of this has been enabled to make sure that we have a very prioritizing mental well-being and creating a very resilient workforce. Then enabling DEI, which is diversity, inclusion and equity, through equal opportunities for all. Now for this, irrespective of the backgrounds where our people come from, their genders or the regions that they come from, we focus on the competency. So they work for Volvo Group because of the competency that they bring in, irrespective of what the backgrounds are. So to make sure that we have, and of course in our industry we are still to get to a place where men and women are equally working together, also because women in our workforce we would want more of women in our workforce, let me put it that way. And therefore, we recognize one problem, which is that in the mid-management levels, we have women who typically have to leave for caregiving, childcare or any other reasons. So therefore, we have returnship programs for women to come back to our systems, work, upskill them on skills that is required and then take them into our systems. We also have leadership programs to make sure we are creating a robust pipeline. Also, how do we make sure that we are providing spaces beyond roles? What I mean by that is, while there are immediate opportunities to grow beyond their immediate roles is, for example, contributing to the corporate social responsibility that we have, where there is a lot of satisfaction that comes from there. There's also cross-functional projects that are provided. There's a lot of mentorship opportunities and mentoring opportunities that are provided. We therefore encourage, amidst all of this, we also encourage our employees to take time to recharge through time offs, and we very brutal about that. Why I say that is because we have, of course, a very supportive leave policy, but we also make sure that our employees take time to recharge. Also, we are one of the first organizations to have had an extended maternity leave policy even before the government kind of mandated it, to make sure that our women are getting that time. But above all, I would say the leaders in Volvo Group also prioritize all of this that I just spoke about and lead by example. So, because we in Volvo Group believe that when our people thrive, so does our organization. With that, I'll hand it back to you, Paul.
Thank you, Radhika, for that nice various initiatives that you shared at Volvo Group. So, Kamal, let me ask you a very different question. Your professional journey spans over 4 decades. What decisions, mindsets from your early days have helped you reach this point? And what are the things that you learned that you wish you were aware of when you started your career?
Very interesting, Paul. Of course, very difficult to capture a 40+ years journey in a short chat like this. But nonetheless, let me attempt to share some of my top of the mind, I would say, attributes or behaviors which helped me. I think first and the foremost, be willing to move into new domains and spaces. I mean, especially when you're doing well, you should be able to get out of your comfort zone. And I think why I say this, because this is what leads to new opportunities. And I think, so that's the point number 1, be ready to give up your comfort zone, be ready to take new opportunities, and don't be scared of them. That's the one. Second, discover as soon as possible. I know it takes time. It cannot happen within a couple of years of your starting your journey. It can take you about even a decade. So decide just discover for yourself what actually you're good at, what actually is something which is an intrinsic strength with you, and then leverage that by putting your 100% behind that. I believe in that strengthen your strengths instead of working too much on your weaknesses, which is again a good thing to do. But I think you can work on strengthening your strengths and use tremendous amount of passion. So I think that's the second. The third is you need to really invest time to build your networks, and these are very important. And then you nurture those networks into lifelong relationships, which is what makes a huge difference as you grow from as a young engineer to a middle management role to a senior role. And I think comes tremendously as a great advantage for you. And then, of course, I've already talked about a few things. Embrace transparency, and this, to my mind, is the biggest strength we all can carry with us, because transparency leads to trust, and trust leads to collaboration, and it is so important in today's world. We've been talking about that. And then, of course, as a leader and as you grow up, people want to see and work with optimistic leaders. I mean, looking at glass half full versus half empty. So people want to, and it's very infectious. Once you are optimistic and the entire team follows you and they all feel good about it. And then finally, which Radhika also alluded to, remain a lifelong student, a curious student, a learner all the time. And then finally, I feel once you become a leader, which you will very soon, you need to embrace the acronym ECO. I love this acronym. This stands for empathy, care for others, courage of your conviction, and being an optimist. So I think if you can take care of some of these attributes, this is something which has helped me a lot, and I'm sure it will come in handy for you guys as well.
Thank you, Kamal, for sharing your 4-decade journey in the industry in a nutshell for young engineers to catch up very easily. Now let me turn to Radhika. If I had to ask you the same question as the CHRO and someone who has spent over 25 years in the industry, what would you like to add from your point of view?
Well, I resonate to a lot that Kamal actually spoke of. But then looking back, my journey, though it was not orchestrated when I started in the way I would have maybe today thought of, but looking back, it seems like it was a mosaic of risks and learnings. I say that because, the choices that I made really shaped my path. And that was, I would say it was intertwined in the appetite for risks that I have. Why I say that is because every time I would feel I'm getting complacent in a role, I would raise my hand. And today I know that growth really lies on the other side of discomfort. But at that point of time, it was not an easy decision. I would suggest that, raising hand to solve problems is what will take people places. Because if you are in a place where everything seems fine, then there isn't a challenge that you're working on. But if you raise your hand to solve problems where people haven't found a solution yet, you learn a lot. Of course, you put yourself through a lot of discomfort, but you also come out of it emerging to be much more confident, competent than you were when you got into that problem. Also, what has helped me specifically is taking on roles which were outside my immediate expertise, which helped me build a T-shaped career. What I mean by that is, I started my career, say, in the learning space, and then I moved into various spaces within the people and culture team, thus allowing me to go deeper in certain areas, but also having an overarching view on the other roles that constitute people and culture, which I feel today has come handy as I take over this role. Also, I have been somebody who's always looked at my leaders and managers seeking feedback. Even whether I was given or not, I would go after asking for feedback, because every time I got a feedback, and I've got feedback for the smallest of things to the biggest of things, and that has really helped me learn and grow. So, and most importantly, I think being passionate about what you do, that's so important, because a strong passion drives you to do things which you may not even imagine you could do. And also you'll find ways to do things which may seem very challenging for the others. So while I was fortunate to have leaders support me through the journey, but I think for the young, people today who are, looking at this webcast today, I would say seeking a mentor early on could really be of great help. Staying curious helps, like Kamal also called out. Staying curious, raising your hand for challenges, you may just discover strengths that you didn't know you had, because end of the day, that provides you immense learning as you move forward. But above all, I would say trust your journey. Every twist and turn that you have in your career journey shapes you to the leader that you become. So trust your journey and love the journey. Have fun as you have that journey.
Thank you, Radhika. It was really very nice to listen to you, and I'm sure these young engineers would also be liking this conversation between you and Kamal. So at this point, I would request the engineers, we are opening up the chat box. So I'd request you to put in some questions so that these leaders will answer as we end in some time from now. We would encourage good questions so that you would get very nice answers. So now coming back to you, Kamal.
Yeah.
Hydrogen, electromobility, automation are some of the buzzwords in the automotive world. Your comments on these developments?
Yeah, Paul, we've already talked about, we've already alluded to some of these terms because hydrogen, electromobility, automation and connectivity are really the key words that define the future of mobility to a very, very large extent, and for reasons which we've already discussed. In fact, energy transition and digitalization are set to influence, disrupt and reset almost every sector of our economy. Not only the automotive sector, I think energy transition and digitalization, if you ask me, are really the two key words going forward. Meanwhile, electromobility has picked up pace in India, as most of you know, through initially as two-wheelers, three-wheelers and city transport. But of course, heavy-duty vehicles like the Volvos of the world are in the initial stage of alternate fuels. We are, though, the leaders globally when it comes to electric mobility, when it comes to for high-capacity, heavy-duty trucks. And we have been working for the last 20 years on alternate fuels. In fact, Volvo is ahead of the curve. We've demonstrated 7 different fuels a decade ago. And of course, electromobility is one of them. In India, only a handful of electric heavy-duty trucks are there. We have a couple of trucks on demo which are doing exceedingly well with a couple of our customers. We are also bringing in construction equipment which works on electric source of energy. And Niti Aayog has released a policy advisory for zero emission trucking. So a lot is happening when it comes to hydrogen, electromobility and digitalization. Clearly, the future will see no silver bullet. As I said, we need to use all the 3 modes of hydrogen fuel cells, electric vehicles and LNG, methanol. We will need to use all tools in the box. So there are 3 fundamental drivers for hydrogen in India. If you were to look at hydrogen as per se as a gas or a fuel, is big exports ambition and focus. India wants to become leader in green ammonia and green hydrogen, and because the renewable energy costs are cheapest in India, we have ample land mass, we have good climate conditions, so and we will also become energy independent. One of the biggest challenges India faces is import of crude oil, and which makes a deficit in our current account in a big way, and which is a big challenge India faces. That is something which the policy makers, the government is really working on, that by 2047, when India turns 100, we should be completely energy independent. So I think other thing is automation you talked about. So automation again is also not that far away, contrary to the popular perception that in India automation will take too long because of the traffic conditions which we have. But I think there are many other opportunities when it comes to automation. It is advanced driver assistance systems, emergency braking, lane departure warning. So I think these are some of the things on which you will see a lot of work, and therefore engineers will have lots, as I said earlier, lots to work on, because there are so many opportunities not only in India but globally, and all the global competency centers of Fortune 500 companies are sitting in India doing all this kind of work. So huge opportunities, I would say I can draw from there.
Thank you, Kamal. So, Radhika, in a world where things are fast changing, who would you prefer? Someone with deep competency in a subject matter, or someone who's open to new learnings across domains?
Actually, we would prefer both because we need both the competencies. We need both the competence and openness to learning. This is because given the phase of evolution that we are in from a business standpoint, the business is working across all three horizons, and Kamal did touch upon that really. If you think about core competencies, for example, which is performing here and now for our core technologies where we maintain the quality, safety and customer expectations. For example, say combustible engines. We need engineers who manage, bring in further efficiency in the day-to-day work, right? Now the next set is the emerging technologies where we need deeper expertise or deeper experts and the ability to connect technology and domain knowledge to experiment, innovate and evolve. For example, the areas Kamal mentioned, which is the areas of electromobility, alternate fuels, or the software-defined vehicles, where there is a lot of work that is going on. We're still figuring out, but there is work that is going on. Have we found the answers for everything? No, not really. And also then we have the future tech areas, where say a complete autonomous solution for our vehicles. We've not gotten there yet. And for us to get there, we need deep technology and domain experts and radical thinkers, really. Now, while I say this, I should also mention that this is cyclic in nature. What I mean by that is, you know, where we were talking about emerging technologies, which is electromobility and alternate fuels or software-defined vehicles, it will all become a core business or core technology in some time, and the future technologies of today may become the emerging technologies of tomorrow. So that's cyclic in nature, and therefore we want people who have the deep expertise and who have an array of skills so that they are able to navigate between all these three worlds to make it to the place that we want to eventually.
Thank you, Radhika. I think at this point I would like to take a question from the audience. I would leave it to either of you all two to answer. This question is from Abhijit Singh, and he says, what are some successful examples of innovation-driven growth within Volvo?
Well, I can take this. I mean, I think if you look at the year 1959, I think the safety belt was innovated, and today the entire world uses that technology. Even after 60 years, that technology has not changed dramatically. And the good thing about this innovation, which I like a lot, is that this patent was given free of cost to all the competitors as well. What was the logic? The logic was that the value it will bring by saving many lives is much more than the cost of the patent or the money which Volvo would have made. So I think that's one example of innovation to start with, and we're very proud that we follow that. And of course, there is a zero vision philosophy which we have. There are a number of other. We have almost about 19 to 20 patents every quarter, I
Yeah,
guess,
it's about 50 to 60 every year.
every year.
Getting filed.
So there is a lot of innovation happening at Volvo. So I talked about the 7 different fuels which we experimented with about 20 years ago, seeing the challenges of climate change at that point in time. So we worked. So at Volvo Group, innovation is in a bloodstream, and I think we love to innovate. We believe that innovation brings tremendous value to the society, not only to your business ecosystem, but also to the society at large.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kamal, for that answer. And I come back to you again on another question. Given the imperatives of the transformative and a complex world that you talked about, what do you think is the holistic idea of an emerging new India in this context?
Yeah, so let me put it in perspective, Paul. I think first of all, let all the youngsters feel happy and good about the fact that India is in a fairly good position today, despite this complex and disruptive world with tremendous geopolitical stress. We have some very good situation backed by some very favorable factors. We are the fastest growing economy. We are the 5th largest in the world. Soon, in the next 2 years, we should be the 3rd largest economy, number 1. Number 2, it took us 75 years to today become a $4 trillion economy, while it will take us just 10 years more to add a similar number, another 4 trillion to the economy. So doubling our economy in the next 10 years. So which means that we would be about $8 trillion. Our demographic dividends, which means the youngsters with a median age of 29, a large digitally savvy talent, aspirational workforce, stable democracy, a bulging middle income group are some of the key advantages that India brings. Also our commitment to climate action, which I have talked about. The question therefore is not whether we shall grow or not grow at what pace. The question is whether all this is enough for us as a large, highly populous nation like ours with very low per capita income. Remember, we have to ensure that we are inclusive, taking every Indian along, for which we have to create 1 crore jobs every year for the next 10 years. So if I were to really put my hands on to what are the real compelling imperatives in mind, let me share the idea of India. I think 6 pillars is what I can think of, and I think this might help you youngsters to really think bigger and bolder and better in the coming years and months. Number 1, we need a strong economy. We have to pull a lot of people out of poverty, and this can happen through entrepreneurship and innovation. So I think that's the first piece, strong economy. Second, transparency in public life. Very, very important. We talked about it for creating trust and collaboration. The third, I think, and Radhika alluded to in fair detail, on social and gender equity for an inclusive growth. We need our women to really walk along with men at the same pace, if not more, if India has to become a super powerful economy. If India wants to become an economy which we can all be proud of, women will have to really take that leap of faith and get into this in a big way. Fourth is excellence in delivered quality. Quality has to be back on the table. We need, because this quality revolution happened in the 80s, 84, 85, and thereafter we went on to many other business process re-engineering and many other things. So quality is back on the table. Quality is something very, very critical to build reputation and respect globally. The 5th point I want to really talk about is holistic sustainable development, which touches physical, digital, environmental and ethical thing. And finally, a feeling of national pride is something very, very important. You need to love your country. You need to really feel for your country if you really want India to really, I would say, fire on all cylinders. I think the national pride is something which binds people together. So I think this is my suggestion and advice to the youngsters, my idea of India.
Thank you, Kamal. Before I get into the last question for this evening, I would again ask you both, especially this question is for to Radhika. It's from Rahul, who asked a question on how is Volvo committed to provide research opportunities to freshers?
So many ways in which we are doing that actually. One, there is a strong partnership with the academia that we typically take our students from, where there is few things that we've done from an academia standpoint also is not just give internship to our students, but also give internship to the professors, so that they understand the kind of work that we are doing, so that it's a larger set of population or a larger set of student population that they are able to influence, getting to know what's the actual or the real work that is happening in our industry. So that is one. Second is we are in partnership with a few academia partnerships that we have, where we are also thinking of how can we provide our problem statements to the academia so that they could work on our problems, and it is a collaboration of that level. And the third aspect is there are research scholars who come to Volvo, work on problem statements that they have, which is part of their research, and work with us to make sure that they have the opportunity to do the research along with us. We have a lot of interns who are researching with us to make sure that whether it is around the sustainability area, whether it is around simulation areas, or the AR VR areas, that people are coming in here researching with us, trying to find a solution along with our engineers, so that we are all trying to solve for the future that we want to solve for.
Thank you. Very well said. And this would be finally the last question to both of you all before we get into the Q&A. So I would like to ask Radhika and Kamal, and beginning with Radhika, if you were a fresh engineer today,
Okay.
what would your top of the mind ambition be?
I would say if I was a fresh engineer, of course I would have been spoiled for choices, that's another thing. But barring that, I think it is all about the choices that we make. Instead of running after the compensation right from the day one, I would say the choice should be more around where I am working, what's the purpose of that organization, so that I am part of a larger purpose. Second is it an environment where I will continuously learn, evolve in my competence, so that tomorrow I become either a deep expert or a leader in a certain domain. And third, when I make the choice, I'll also look at a place where I have the environment and the ecosystem to continuously collaborate with others, learn from others, innovate. So I would say I would base my choices based on these aspects.
I think Radhika has said it all. I think she's covered all of it. And of course, I mean, if I was a young engineer, I would certainly like to work with an organization like Volvo. Why Volvo? As Radhika mentioned, an organization which brings a higher purpose. You get the satisfaction that you've contributed in your own small way to that higher purpose, and in the process, you learn a lot. So,
Absolutely.
if I were a young engineer, I would not miss an opportunity to work with an organization like Volvo.
Thank you, Kamal and Radhika. So, dear friends, you have heard the two leaders very sharply sharing their thoughts on wide-ranging topics. But let me welcome you to quiz them with your questions. So here's another question that has been sent on the chat, which I would ask Radhika. What skills do you recommend for students to focus on to build a successful career in the fast-changing competitive landscape?
It is very difficult to point out to say which skill to go for, but what I would say is whatever you learn, try and make sure that you're going deep in your learning so that you understand your space. So it is not just theoretical knowledge that you're gathering through your education, but also you know how to apply those skills. So that is the first. Second is, like I said, it's always, it's a journey of continuous evolution, right? The technology itself is evolving. So by the time you pass out from your engineering college, what you studied or your skill that you must have gathered, quite possible that we are at the next level of that skill in the industry. So therefore, how do you make sure that you're constantly in touch with people in the industry, learning from them, making your internships more and more effective for yourself? But once you start your industry journey, then how do you make sure that either you go and understand your T-shaped skill, that means to say you kind of get to a place where you understand which is the skill where you want to go deep in your knowledge, in your expertise, and what are the areas within where you need to have the peripheral skills knowledge. So that's how I would kind of place it.
Thank you, Radhika. And we get to the last question because paucity of time. I would like to ask this to Kamal. This is a question that has come in from our young engineers. How important leadership qualities for an engineer to succeed in his field?
So I think, first of all, the concept of leadership needs to be clarified. I mean, leadership is not sitting in the corner room in an office or becoming a vice president or a president of a company. I think leadership starts with each one of us, because leadership is all about bringing all your skills or your capabilities to the table and making a contribution to the overall purpose. So leadership is all about meeting those purposes. It is not simply leading by sitting in a corner room. So to me, leadership is all about anyone who can make a contribution to a larger purpose of an organization.
Actually, I'd like to add on to that,
Yeah,
what Kamal said. I strongly believe that irrespective of where you are in the pyramid, where you are in the hierarchy, you should behave and act like a leader. So that means to say you should be able to own your space completely. If you're able to do that, you become a leader automatically. So I would say irrespective of where you are, which organization you are, start to feel like a leader so that that sense of ownership really gets completely accentuated.
Absolutely.
So with this, we come to the end of today's Fireside Chat with Kamal Bali and Radhika Nair. So I thank you, young engineers, and my friends for listening and tuning on to this. We'd like you to study more on Volvo, and we'll be coming back to you very soon on our second Fireside Chat. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.